And the idea is that, you know, people who can't make it today can come along and have a look at it at a later point. One of the things I'm going to be saying throughout the session today is that Knowledge Hub is a very useful tool, and we're going to be increasingly trying to put materials on there rather than bringing you together for sessions like this. So, you know, hopefully that's a more kind of efficient way for people to engage with the learning and research activities and other activities in the programme. So I'm keeping things brief today with the idea of putting more detail on the Knowledge Hub in the coming days. So hopefully you can have a look when you've got some time. I think the other thing to say is that we got some feedback. Originally, this was a 2-hour session, and we heard feedback that people were really finding it hard to engage with all the sessions that we and others were running around the programme. So we've shortened it to 30 minutes. And I just mentioned that not to, you know, earn your goodwill or what have you, but just to sort of show that this is one of the things we are so keen to promote throughout the programme, this idea of listening and responding and learning. You know, so if I just mentioned that as an example of us trying to listen and adapt, and we really hope that that is a way in which we are all going to be working together throughout this programme. If you notice ways in which we or others in the programme could be listening or adapting more helpfully or more effectively, please let us know. We hope you will also feel able to be listening and adapting in the way that you're going about the work. So just a little plug for that way of working as something that we're really keen to model and promote. I think that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. Just to reiterate again, we're quite a large group today. I believe there's more than 20 of us. So if people can stay on mute as much as possible, that would be great. Really interested in questions and comments in the chat. My aim is to keep my bit of spiel to about sort of 20 minutes or so. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some time to just review things that have come up in the chat and just have a quick chat and discussion about any of the comments there. So please keep that fed with your thoughts and ideas. We are monitoring it as we go. But to start with, just so that everybody does know who's here, I don't want to go around and do introductions because that'll take a lot of time, but I wanted to do a sort of shout out, if you like. So what I'm going to do is call out to groups of people that I believe are here. And if I call your group, could you just come off mute and shout hello, and hopefully your faces will be spotlighted for a moment so that we can all see who you are. Don't know how this will work. We'll give it a go. Could we start, for example, who is here from Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire? Could you come off mute and say hello, and hopefully we can see you then?
Yeah.
That looks like Lorraine. Hi, nice to see you. Okay.
And there's also Liz. I'm Liz Libretto. I'm from Bristol.
Oh, yes. Hello, you didn't crop up on my screen. Okay, maybe this isn't working so well.
I can also see Jez is here.
Yeah, hello.
Great. Well, it's good that you're all here. Thank you for making us aware of you. That's great. Okay, who's here from Doncaster? Have we got people from the Doncaster team? Come off mute, say hello. Possibly not then. Okay. Nobody from Doncaster, for Stainforth. Okay. What about Newham? Who's here from Newham? Can you come?
Yes, I'm here from Newham. I'm Anne Hagel from the Association for Young People's Health.
Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Great. Nice to have you here. What have we got? Blythe. Who's here from Northumberland and Blythe? I can see a couple.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. It's Adeline. Who else? Great.
Liz. Tom.
Wendy.
Nice to see you all. Thank you for coming along. Have we got some Shropshire people?
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Someone
Kathy.
Kathy, hi, hello, welcome. Okay, so I believe that's everybody from the 5 delivery sites. I just wanted to also do a quick shout out to some of the others who are here. We've got there'll be people who's here from the LGA. I think you're probably all familiar with the LGA team, but come off mute and say hello. We've got Hannah and Melissa, I think.
Hi, I think you guys are all fed up of us, but yeah, we're here. Hannah and Melissa.
I was going to say you all know us, but fed up could work as well.
And the Health Foundation team, I did want to just make sure they said hello because I'm not completely sure whether people know them well. We've got Hardeep and Sarah and Louise, I believe. Can you come off mute?
Hello. Hello.
Anyone else from Health Foundation? I think that's it.
That's it.
Lovely. welcome. I think I saw Theo from Design Council creep in. Is that true? Are you here, Theo?
Yeah, that's true. Theo here. Just me from Design Council today. But yeah, I
Nice
think
to
likewise
see
with
you.
Melissa. Must be fed up with me as well.
And then I think finally we've got a number of us from the learning and research team here today. So there's me, I'm Lucy, and then my colleagues who are all going to say hello now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi guys.
Paul, Josh, Julie, Lily.
Hello, Paul Cowigan here.
And Nick Hicks.
Hi, Nick. Yes, there's a few of us. Great. Anyway, that's it's tricky doing introductions in a big group like this, but I hope that gives you a rough flavour for who's in the room and who you're, sharing your chat with and so on. But without further ado, let's get on with the presentation. I'm going to share my slides. Hoping that's visible. I can see you, Josh. Can you give me a nod? Great. So, really, what's the purpose of today? There's three things. We wanted to sort of mark the end of the scoping phase. We've been doing lots of work with you and also behind the scenes, trying to understand and scope what these learning and research activities are going to look like. We feel we've come to the end of that scoping phase, so we wanted to just kind of mark that and share that with you. And thank you for your input, which has been really valuable. We wanted to kind of set out what we think our plans are from here in terms of learning and research activities. Not completely finalised, but enough for us to be able to share with you, and also hopefully explain to you roughly what that's going to look like in terms of a commitment and timings from here on in, just give you a flavour of that. I'm sure that's kind of important for you to understand. And whilst we're all together, we thought we'd try and just share a few bits of the learning that we've discovered so far along the journey. So that's it, short and sweet, I hope. Without further ado, I'll carry straight on. Let me just put this on slideshow. There we are, a bit easier to see. So we have these are the kind of rough activities that we've been up to since September time. In September and October, we've been busy reviewing lots of documentation, your system maps, your theories of change, trying to really understand as much as we possibly can about the programme and about your activities in the 5 sites. We've been delivering site level workshops, so these are the times when we came to speak to you in different forms. We've done that in all the sites we've been and spoken to you at 2 points in time. First of all, about trying to get to know you and understand some of the learning to date, understand a little bit about your systems and your theories of changes. And then on the second round of conversations we were having with you was a little bit more about research questions and methods, trying to think a little bit about exactly how we're going to go about these research and learning activities. At the same time as we were doing that, we were also talking to the programme-wide partners and some external advisors about how this can be most effectively set up and established as a kind of piece of system learning and research. Again, things to do with the theories of change, ways of working, trying to capture initial bits of learning so far. And also in the second workshop, really trying to think hard about some of the research questions and the methods and the ways of working that's going to bring about a really useful piece of learning and research for the programme. We've used all of that information over these last few months to put together a very comprehensive, really quite long actually, learning and research framework, which we won't share with you in all the detail, but we will share aspects of it with you on Knowledge Hub, because I think there's some aspects of it that are really useful for you to see. You're very welcome to see the whole thing, but it's quite a read. And we've been preparing that, and then actually yesterday we took it to a technical advisory group, which was a group of academics mostly, who are real deep thinkers and experts in the world of systems and system change, and we were really seeking their advice about the extent to which the methods and approaches and research questions that we're trying to prioritise are going to be meaningful and useful, and what insights they have for us as the learning and research partner, and also the programme as a whole, how it can really work effectively. So as you can see, we've been trying to sort of draw together information, gather it all up and pull it together into a place where we can really start a learning and research programme which we feel is going to be robust and grounded in a really good set of theories and evidence. moving on a little, we've then of course pulled together some research questions and of course some methods. I'm actually going to stop sharing for a moment. And just sort of talk you through where we've got to with this. I believe that, you know, because during our workshops with each of you, you've had some insight about the research questions that we're thinking of covering and the methods that we propose. We're continuing to work on them following discussions with the technical advisory group yesterday. And once we've got the research questions kind of nicely finalised and prioritised, we'll share them on the Knowledge Hub so that everybody's really clear about the research questions we're focused on. We are still toing and froing on some aspects. We're still unsure about which ones really should take top priority. At the moment, we've got quite a long list of really interesting research questions and we suspect we can't cover them all. So we're doing those last bits of prioritising and tidying up before coming back to you with the research questions. But they haven't changed in essence from what we brought to you originally and what we've spoken to you about, and we've taken on board pieces of feedback that we've had from you about those research questions. So finalising those as we speak really is the news there. I won't say too much more about the research questions because we're still working on them. I'm just going to show you in our the methods that we are expecting to work on. If I just put that back that way. There we are. So here's a table which attempts to summarise the methods that we propose working with you on. We think that in reality, we're probably talking about starting this programme of activity in about May. So in a couple of months' time that we'll be coming to you to really try and get these methods underway. As you can see down the left-hand side, we've got about 7 different sets of activities, different methods that we want to work with you on for these learning and research activities. Most of them will repeat every year, but not all of them. And I'll just briefly run through them, and in a moment I'm going to ask Paul Corrigan to just talk a little bit about the last one on the list there, which is the learning sets. So first of all, each year we want to come to you and have a workshop where we will look at what you've learned so far, what we need to set you up to learn it in the coming years, and trying to do a little bit of reflection about what might have changed within the system, what you think looks different now 1 year on. So that piece of reflection at the start of each year. We'll be doing in-depth interviews with the programme stakeholders, those who have set up and designed the programme, if you like, across the Health Foundation and the LGA, to see what their observations are and how things are unfolding and what they're spotting and observing. A critical part of it really will be coming to each of the sites and trying to do in-depth interviews with we've suggested 18 key stakeholders in each of the sites, and we'll be wanting to work with you to try and really understand who are the most interesting and important people to speak to, and we would like those people to be from right across the system, you know, quite, I don't know, senior strategic sort of people, and also, you know, community members and people who are likely to be really affected by the system change, and everybody, you know, all shades in between too. So a real mix, a cross section of people across your system will be interested to try and talk to on an annual basis. We'd also love to come and observe some key meetings. We're assuming that there are occasions during the year when your system or aspects of your system or people within your system come together and, you know, work through a whole series of agenda points, decisions to make, things to think about and work through. We'd like to observe some of that and try and see what it looks and feels like as your system interacts together and operates. We'd like to come and see those meetings on a relatively regular basis. I think we've said 2 per year, to just see how that functions and operates. We think there's going to be quite a lot of rich learning to pull out of that. We also propose a self-reflection tool. As we'll come on to talk about, perhaps, we believe that reflection and self-reflection is a really important part of understanding system change and learning from system change. And so this is something that we want to try and prioritise, asking you who are right in there doing it and experiencing it to stop and observe your own reflections. And we'll have an online tool that will enable you to do that on a regular basis, and we can circulate that. We'll deliver some focus groups with people who are doing system work, but not as part of this programme, just to see if we can, you know, spot any differences or learnings about the way that this programme's been set up and the way that work's happening here, and the way that other programmes are, or other systems are trying to bring about change and operate within the context of health outcomes. I won't say too much more. That was just a little whistle-stop tour of the kinds of things we're likely to expect to want to do with you during each year. But I am just going to hand over to Paul now so that he can talk to you a little bit about the point on the bottom, the 8 learning sets.
And Lucy, just before you do that, there's a couple of questions in the chat that I think relate to this, which would be helpful maybe for you to answer. So there's one about whether that's 18 interviews each per year.
Yes. Thanks. Over to you, Paul.
Okay, the purpose of the action learning sets is to talk about the detail of practice that you're involved in getting your systems to work to improve health. Each of you will be doing slightly different systems and slightly different aims, but actually what we've experienced before is that all of the localities will be facing similar problems, and some of them will succeed in working through some of those problems and others won't. And discussing the detail of how you do that in these action learning sets, we found is a way of doing a great deal of detail of practice learning, not just theoretical learning, but practice learning. And that works well because in these sessions with the 5 localities all represented, some of you will be working well on some things and some of you will be not working well on some things. And so each of you in these sessions, the slogan I have is that each of you are teachers and each of you are students. Because actually some of you will succeed at some things and others of you will succeed at others. So on each occasion, we will start with a practice issue. We'll discuss that practice issue in depth, and then we'll set up another practice issue for the second one, and all the time looking at how the detail of how some of you have managed to move forward whilst others of you feel blocked will be what we discuss.
Thanks, Paul. That was a very helpful summary of the learning sets, and obviously we can talk to you more on another time about what that looks like in detail, but I think it will be a really important component of the learning and research that we draw out of this, those regular learning sets. Just to move us on a little bit, I just wanted, before we wrap up, really, to share with you some of the learning that we have been gathering so far in our conversations with you and with stakeholders and with the technical advisory group. So I'm just going to, why is that not moving on? There we are. I just wanted to share, whilst we've got you together, to share some of the interesting bits of learning we've uncovered so far. I think the important thing to say is that there's lots of learning emerging in different locations, and the learning and research framework which we've put together, this long hefty document I've just been describing, has quite a lot of detail about the learning that we have uncovered, and we'll put that extract on the Knowledge Hub so that you can have a look at it and see what we've been thinking about. But a couple of points just to set out some of the key learnings. I'm going to be quite brief about this, but there's one sort of overarching theme that runs through a few of the things we've been thinking about. I've listed them out there as bullet points, but just to summarise, really, what we're discovering is that there's a kind of a bit of a challenge, I suppose, or a kind of interesting tension around this need to move forward thoughtfully and using a kind of theoretical and academic and reliable base of evidence around systems change, which is quite fundamental and can be quite slow if it's going to be effective. And there's this sort of thoughtful, slow, important progress, which we are trying to embed as part of this systems change activity and trying to understand as part of this overall programme of learning and research. And we're finding that kind of rubbing up against, if you like, the need for quite urgent, important, local, very pressing needs around, antisocial behaviour or food poverty or mental well-being issues, the need to demonstrate to evidence to stakeholders locally that change is happening on an annual basis, and perhaps there's metrics that need to be, responded to, and funding priorities that need to be evidenced. And we're noticing this kind of challenge between the two things of the sort of the need to proceed carefully and cautiously and thoughtfully to bring about really fundamental systems change, and also the need to kind of keep local communities engaged, to talk to them in plain language, not kind of strange systems language, and to really make enough pace and effort and energy locally that people can stay engaged and enthused and excited. And I think this is, so far we're discovering, one of the kind of really the most important pieces of learning for us as a learning and research partner is to understand, and I suppose I wanted to reassure you that we have absolutely noticed that tension if it's something you're experiencing, and we're trying to work with ways of tackling it, and we're really interested in ideas about things we can be doing differently to manage those two different tensions. I won't say too much more about it because I'm noticing that time is already running out, however brief you try to be. I did just want to finish with this point, and here what we did, as we've spoken to you over the last few months, we've heard some really key and interesting quotes and statements from people who are, you know, on this call and others, and I just wanted to share a few of them that have really resonated. And the reason they resonate is that they give us confidence that there is quite a shared understanding about what we're trying to do on this slightly complicated programme, really. And it's given us a sense that, you know, we are all reasonably agreed on what it is we're trying to achieve here. There's quite a lot of kind of inspiration and motivation to go forward and try and achieve that. And also the thing that I really like is that we're seeing quite a lot of realism about the challenges. And so let me just share a few of these quotes that have kind of, for us as programme learning and research partners, has felt really encouraging. The things that don't work are just as important as the things that do work. Of course, when you're trying to learn, things going a little bit wrong is really useful, and we feel we can't emphasize that enough. We really want you to experiment as much as you can, and we're not here to say that's right and that's wrong. We're all here to learn. I thought it was a really interesting statement about, we don't want professionals to believe their own hype too much. We don't think that a few excited conversations in a professional bubble is going to mean that change happens. I thought that was a really important statement and really important to acknowledge. There is a lot of thinking and talking required around this programme, but at the same time, we've absolutely got to be mindful of the fact that that in itself is not going to bring about change. This is an important one, I think. The purpose of building models is to involve people in the process. This changes the mental model, which in turn leads to changes in decisions. And that's really what we're here for. We're here for kind of different thinking and different decisions and different approaches. And that's that real self-reflection, and changing the way that people think about things is going to be critical to moving forward, we believe. People have said we're not really implementing a concrete intervention. It feels as though the whole process is an adaptation in itself, and that's a really another kind of key element, I suppose. Somebody else said we're unclogging the machine. I love that. You know, essentially it's all here. The system and resource works. It's all here. It's just that we need to unplug it and get it working more effectively to keep the momentum of change going. We heard a few times from people, we're not ready to begin delivery in earnest, and I suppose we feel we've spent quite a lot of time trying to reassure people that that's okay. Wherever you are on this journey, whether you're still just working out what on earth you're doing, or whether you're really, you know, raring to go and ready to deliver, we want to sort of sit alongside you and learn from wherever you are at the moment, because wherever you are at the moment is really important learning for the programme, and that felt like an important point to re-emphasise. And I thought this was a lovely realistic quote too. It's not going to be wholly transformative, but there will be pockets of excellence at the end of this work. Somebody else talked about planting acorns. You know, this is we're not expecting to change the world, but we are expecting to sow the seeds of something important. And then what was the final one I really liked? Oh yes, this was from a programme stakeholder who said we want to encourage tortoises, not hares. And so I think that's just again to reassure that this sense of kind of steady progress that's meaningful is important. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to leave 3 tiny minutes to try and cover what's cropped up in the chat. I believe Hardeep was going to keep an eye on that for us.
I am. I think the key question is from Anne, and I think Emily endorsed it as well, and it's around this time commitment for stakeholders we're asking stakeholders to take part in in-depth interviews, and there's a concern that stakeholders are time pressured. Are we asking too much of them? Yeah, you want to respond to that, Lucy?
Yeah, that's a really helpful point and very useful feedback, and we can adapt this. The other thing I should have said is that we intend setting up the methods for year 1, and we intend having a go at them. As I keep on saying, this is an adaptive and learning programme, and I think there's a really good chance that in year 2 we'll do the methods a bit differently, because we'll have learned that some things work well and some things don't work well. So that's the first point. You know, we're up for learning. In terms of the 18 stakeholder interviews, typically that would be about 45 minutes to an hour for each of the 18 individuals. We can see, you can tell us whether that feels proportionate or not. You're much better placed to judge than we are. If that feels like the wrong approach, or it doesn't feel like an approach that you can get on board with, we can be flexible. We can find different ways of engaging and hearing from people. This is our suggestion. This is what we'd like to do. But if it's not going to work, we're up for hearing that too. So, you know, let's pick up on that if helpful. I've just noticed the comment about how it feels like a lot of people, and maybe it is too many people. I think when we were designing it, we were just so keen to make sure that we were really hearing the cross section, and that we had plenty of space for people in the community who might be, you know, on you know, experiencing the change in their day-to-day lives. We wanted to make sure we had plenty of space to hear from them, as well as those who are within the system doing the thinking. But these are all things we can adapt and come to. It's really useful to have your thoughts and feedback on it.
Lucy, can I just chip in? Is that okay?
I can't see who that is.
But I've had my hand up. I didn't know whether you could see. It's Wendy Scott from Blythe, Northumberland. I'm just trying to sort of capture what people are saying, and I'm in agreement. I think that if we understand the research questions, we can start to do that, those interviews, if you like. We can start to talk to communities about the things that you're interested in, so that rather than spending an hour with 18 different people and them not really understanding what this is about, we could start to almost warm up our stakeholders and our communities while we start to go into delivery mode.
That's very thoughtful. That sounds like a collaborative approach. There's something.
Can I respond to that, Lucy?
Independence, but yeah, Hardeep, go ahead.
I think that's absolutely fine, Wendy. The questions will be in the learning and research framework, and that will be updated as and when you have conversations with Lucy and co, and with Theo. Those questions are there for you to look at, and we'll keep refining them, as I think Hannah's already said. So yeah, you can start sharing with them straight away. But this whole process is about us learning what's working well, what isn't working well. How can we make this program work? How do we make it work for other people who might want to try this stuff? And so it's really important for us to talk to people one-on-one and not just in group settings, because otherwise we're not going to get their testimony. And it's really important that we have that.
I think answered the question.
I'm really conscious, sorry, just to say, I'm conscious that the meeting was scheduled to finish at 3:30, and so people are very welcome to disappear now. We'll follow up with slides and information on Knowledge Hub. That said, I have time, so if people want to stay on and ask questions and chat some more, I'm really welcome. I'm very happy for that. So yeah, it's 3:30. Leave or stay. You're really welcome to do either of those things.
Perfect. Lucy, can we get Anne to ask her question quickly, because she's had quite a few questions in the chat.
Okay, I was going to come to Anne next. Go.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to build on those a bit, I think for me there is a question, and because I don't really understand what the research questions are, I think that's an important thing for us, as Wendy was saying, for us to really have a grip on whether these interviews will be the right kind of methods, and whether you have actually thought around what the alternatives might be for getting to the things that you need. I have two reservations about the number and the length of those interviews. One is that I am concerned we are very softly with our stakeholders at the moment. I am really concerned that there may be an impact on our rapport if they are getting big demands coming in for an hour of their time doing something else as well. So I think you might need to factor that into the impact of the research actually on the programs themselves as they're on the ground. But I think, and I know this from experience already, if you want that much time, you won't get the high level people. And so that's also a question for you in terms of matching the method to the research questions. Because I think if you want to speak to the Director of Public Health, you're not going to get an hour. So if you really want to speak to him, it's going to have to be a method that takes, you know, much less time or is much more fleet of foot or something more adaptable to his time. And I think that's really important in terms of the level of input, because if you took the low, you know, a more junior level of their staff, you know, they'll have a completely different impression of how this is working. So I just think it maybe that needs a little bit more thinking through.
I think that's fine. And of course, we set out these methods that we're talking across 5 sites, each of which is an entirely different shape and size and setup, actually. And I suppose that table that I showed you was a kind of, here's our starter for 10 in each of the 5 sites. Of course, we'll then come and talk to you about what feels right and proportionate in each of your sites. And if your Director of Public Health is, you know, would only be able to offer us 20 minutes, brill, let's have 20 minutes with him or her. Let's do, if a focus group is going to be a better way of hearing from your community members than an individual interview, lovely, let's do that instead. You know, apps, I suppose what I want to say is, you know, absolutely, we're really keen. You know, there's no value in us turning up with a kind of rigid program of we must speak to this number of people for this many minutes, because it never operates like that in reality, I suppose. So I'd like to reassure you that we definitely want to be flexible about the way in which we go about it. If an online tool is going to be more suitable in some locations than others, you know, whichever way, really. I suppose in some ways you might want to look at it as a kind of pool of research resource that we use in flexible different ways in the different locations. Our starter for 10 is what we've set out on that slide, but we can definitely adapt it. And in terms of the research questions, yes, I mean, we have shared them already. They haven't changed substantially. What we're doing now is kind of trying to refine and prioritise them. And once we've finished that, rather than sharing another draft set, which might change, I think that's a bit confusing at this stage, we'll try and get them tightened up and finalised, and then we'll get them onto Knowledge Hub so that everybody's clear about, you know, really what it is we're focused on. Are there other thoughts or questions before we finish up? I don't want to keep people unnecessarily, but also I don't want to, you know, rush through if people have things they want to ask.
I'm not too sure whether I've had the link to the Knowledge Hub, Lucy. I apologise if I have, because there's just so many different things.
Wendy, I'll send you an invite. That's fine.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a new thing for all of us, and that was one of the things today, was to just try and raise its profile a little bit. And it's great to, you know, if you're not quite logged into it yet, that's great, because hopefully this is another nudge to do so. And if we can all be a bit of a community on there, I think it'll take time for us all to get used to using it regularly and you know, make it really flow and be useful. But that requires a little bit of energy from everybody to get there, but I'm hoping we will. Well, thank you, everybody. I think it's probably good to just draw this to a close, and I really appreciate everybody coming along and engaging, and very helpful. We'll be in touch as soon as we can with some more information, really. But thank you. And if there are questions that are to you afterwards, I hope people either have my email address or can get in touch with me through LGA. We're really happy to talk more and work this out in a way that works for everybody.
Thank you.
I think we'll say goodbye. Nice to see
Thanks
everybody.
a lot, Lucy.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
See you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.